Part 58. After My Death, The Villain Blackened Again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 576. Father Su and Mother Su often heard how terrible the children of the rebellious period were. They originally thought that their children were good learners and were 3 good students. There would be no such thing as rebellion. As a result, they were caught off guard. They were really frightened, and now they want to sing well, but do not expect anything. Yanj could not comfort Su's and Su mother's trembling heart, so he could only immerse himself in hard work and use actual actions to counterattack. She and Fei Jiao's early love affair was a tumultuous one. Many students in the school knew about her and Fei Jiao. Some people even learned from the friends of Fei Jiao that Yanj was pregnant. When we first returned to the class, everyone was staring at Yanj secretly, and found that Fei Jiao did not return to school, and it seemed that he was abroad, and he didn't take the girlfriend of Yanj again. The score of Yanj in a mock exam is almost at the end of the car. The boys and girls look at Yanj like a joke. Especially those girls who were jealous of the host before, sneered at the toilet several times. The ex-girlfriend of Fei Jiao's mixed society even blocked a song in the grove of the school and wanted to give a lesson to the song. However, the words of these opponents are nothing at all. She sometimes thought that, even if the host turned around halfway, the mockery and bullying on these campuses might still be the last straw that crushed the host. After all, the condition of the host at that time was always a state of collapse. I don't know how to go the wrong way, and then come back again. We must have a strong mentality and a strong ability to bear. But most people do not have these two, let alone the age of the host. I didn't expect to study hard enough to even become the last. After the first mock test, Yanj adjusted his schedule to sleep at 3 in the middle of the night and got up at 6. Her time is racing against time, and even at the little time after class, she is reading the subject except going to the toilet. When I came home for dinner, I was carrying books. Suddenly, the daughter was so motivated to study. While Su and Su were not used to it, they were afraid that Yanj would ruin their own body, and they saw that Yanj's body was thin and small. No matter how they made up, they didn't seem to be fat. They were really anxious. During the time when Yanj sprinted and studied, Su mother and Su father invited Grandma Su to discuss the diet and life of Yanj. Of course, it also brought a little supervision. In the early years, Grandma Su valued sons and daughters, because the host's granddaughter and Mother Su had so many fights, and now they are old, they still feel anxious because the Su family is not coming. Of course, they will not do their best to sing songs. That's right, but she said those words with Su and Su. Yanj focused on her studies, and naturally took her words for granted. In the second simulation test, the performance of Yanj reached the middle reaches and finally improved. Although the gap was quite large, she had delayed so many lessons and had early love. She could adjust herself so quickly, even the teacher they called her to the office alone and praised her. By the third mock exam, Yanj's score had reached the upper position in the class. Progress was so rapid that even the teacher was surprised. After My Death, The Villain Blackened Again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 577. The classmates probably think that Yanj passed the exam well because she was born to learn tyrants, and no one is envious of natural ingenuity. It can be said that every night, from 3 o'clock at 3 o'clock in the morning, to sleep at 6 o'clock for no more than half an hour, this perseverance is invisible to others. The high school entrance examination finally ushered in such a dark study. Yanj has steadily ascended to the top spot in the class in the last few mock exams, and his scores are completely stable. This time, her grades in the middle school entrance exam were unexpectedly good. The comprehensive grade was the first in the school. Not to mention, her composition was a rare perfect score. As soon as Yanj's grades came out, the class teacher called Yanj to notify the good news as soon as possible. The students who had taken 3 years were about to enter high school, and the grades of the students in the class were better than expected. This dark horse made the class teacher feel that he could pull out this good student for more than 10 years as an example to educate everyone. After discussing in the class, I found a place to hold a party with the teachers. As the number one in school, Yanj was sitting next to her teacher. When boys toast for the teacher, they will also toast to Yanj, by the way. They are all children, and they are talking about toasting. In fact, wine is a type of cola Sprite juice. In the eyes of the boys, the host has always been an unattainable school bull. He looks good and learns well, and has a gentle temperament. It is estimated that the boys in the entire class have such a longing for the host. Since the host and Fei Jiao's affairs came out, the host was pregnant and gave birth throughout the school. Boys are hostile to the host, which is an attitude of anger and want to take advantage of the situation and get a little cheap. However, Yanj did not give up on herself. She tried hard to surpass her former host and took the first test. Those who look down on her and want to see her jokes are very much impressed. When Yanj went to the bathroom between the seats, a boy was blocked in the corridor as soon as he left the bathroom. Congratulations. The boy was a little hesitant. After saying such a word, he didn't continue. Although blocking the road of Yanj, his eyes dodged, and he didn't even dare to look directly at Yanj. Yanj knows him. The first place in the class has always been him. Occasionally, he can still enter the top 5 of the grade. When the host is the best, he only rounds the class with him once. Thank you, Yan Ji politely replied. You too, the test is very good, Tongzi. The boy heard the words and finally looked up at Yan Ji's gaze. He opened his mouth, and in the doubtful gaze of Yan Ji, finally aroused his courage and said, "It's true that you have played a child for Fei Jiao. Is it?" The people in the school, obviously secretly, don't know how many people are discussing this matter, and even many people have asked before Yanj. And many people affirmed the truth of this matter without asking Yanj, and those who hurriedly accused them of mocking Yanj. What Ling Yanj didn't expect is that the Shui Ba, who has always heard nothing outside the window, would gossip like this. She smiled slightly, and looked at him with clear eyes. What happened to it? What happened before? What's wrong? The voice was mild and not sharp at all, as if he had asked a usual question, and she responded to him from a discussion angle. Shui Ba was stunned. Yan Ji's eyes were too clear, such a pair of bright and calm eyes, obviously a little offensive, but after he met her eyes, he even wanted to avoid so little. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Weipang. Chapter 578. I don't mean anything else, Yanj hadn't questioned yet. Swiba explained. You are fine. People like Fei Jiao are not worthy of you. Don't be sad. After he had said this, he suddenly turned away and hurried away. Yan Ji looked at his back. For a while, he was a little bit timid, young Mue, and learned to dominate his heart. He probably had such a good impression on the host. Maybe it can be called like, but the teenager is too young to know how to express your likes. Speaking of which, Shui Ba is the reaction that children should have when they are in early love. Like Fei Jiao, it is playing with girls in the name of love. There was a sneer sound behind him. Several girls approached Yanj and blocked the way of Yanj. One of them reached out and poked the poem on the shoulder. Even Zhonzhong, a boy who has been hooked up by you, doesn't keep it. Su Mian, you really have the ability. You have a broken shoe with a child abortion. You really think you have become a goddess that everyone likes? Ha ha ha. She certainly doesn't know how everyone scolds her behind her, especially those boys, who are still thinking about collecting some money to sleep with her tonight. Now, Su Mian, you haven't been sleeping for a long time, it must be lonely, ha 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 ha, boys give you money to sleep, what a good thing, do you agree? Mankind is really a wonderful thing. The more developed technology is, the sooner mankind matures, especially these ignorant young girls. They should be the age of absorbing knowledge, but they are very enthusiastic about this kind of thing. You have to be an expert. Yan Ji frowned, but didn't plan to ignore them, pushed the girl away and walked towards the private room. But the girl stopped her again in the next instant. A girl clasped her words with her fingernails and said with a smile, "What are you in a hurry? We won't see each other in the future. Let's talk about the old tonight." Yan Ji rolled his eyes, "Give up." One of the girls couldn't bear it, and reached out to drag Yan's hair. "What's the drag, but it's just a broken shoe. We talk to you and deserve you, so don't know what to do. The head of Yanj is really a place that cannot be touched." The girl's hand hadn't touched Yan Ji's head yet. Yan Ji reached out and grabbed her wrist, pushing it to the ground. She didn't even need to use her own basalt walk to get out of the way. Such a few girls who whispered, she pushed them all away. When stepping back, it seemed to step on someone else's foot. Yan Ji turned his head, a man on the phone was holding her shoulder. "Sorry," Yan Ji said sorry to him, letting the road go and let people go first. But the man didn't leave. He hung up the phone and slowly put the phone in his pocket. Then he looked to the song, "Wipe It" refers to leather shoes that have been trampled by Yanj. Simple two-character outlet, the sound is cold without the slightest temperature. Yan Ji could not help but glanced at him again. Suddenly she was happy, and the man in front of her had an impression. Although her thoughts fluttered in the bottom of her heart, she did not reveal her face, but raised her head slightly, her lips opened slightly, and looked at the man with a puzzled look. Then she asked, "Uncle, what did you just say?" Her voice was soft, her pure voice sounded simple, but there was another kind of coquettishness that could spit out water. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 579. Raising her head like this, the light fell on her face, and those clear eyes glowed brightly because of the light, but she looked a little timid because of the confusion at the bottom of her eyes. The corners of her eyes were slightly raised, the red lips were slightly opened, the small face was delicate and weak. Between the girl and the woman, pure but charming, delicate but demon, the man looked at the words, and his features were slightly down. In the shadow of the light, I can't see the expression on the face. He just stared at Yan's song and said nothing. The girls pushed away by the song sang again. Yan Ji hurriedly hid behind the man, she took the man's arm, and her head and half of her body were next to the man's shoulder, like a frightened bunny next to him seeking security. "Uncle, our classmates are meeting today, a few of them want to bully me." The words of Jian Shengsheng brought endless grievances, and the second uncle called even more skilled and intimate. "It's like getting used to it." Sure enough, a few girls were bewildered by the intimate action of Yanj, thinking that the imposing man in front of him was really the second uncle of Yanj, immediately put away his minions, and stared fiercely when avoiding the man. Yanj ran quickly into the box. Yanj waited until the girls ran back to the box before releasing the man's arm. She crouched down and wiped the men's leather shoes with her hands. Her sleeves rolled up slightly to reveal a thin white tender arm, and the man's eyes fell from her arm to her white greasy neck. There is a red mole the size of a red bean on the side of her neck. The neck is too white, it seems that the red mole is very bright. He asked, "How old?" There was no emotion in the voice, and even from the beginning to the end, he stood there without other movement. Yan Ji slightly raised his head and looked at him. "Uncle is asking how old are I?" The voice was still tender, as if he could release water. He stared at her, his eyes more gloomy. "Are you an adult?" Yan Ji stood up, twisted and walked towards the bathroom. She washed her hands, and when she got out of the bathroom, the man stood outside. With his back against the wall, he held a cigarette in his hand, and when he saw the word song came out, his eyes were nailed to the word song. He stretched out his hand, dragged the word song into his arms, and extinguished the cigarette. On the side of the trash can, he opened her long neck hair with her hands, touched her red bean mole with her fingertips, and touched her lips with her lips. The heat immediately slammed her lips and filled her ears. "Are you an adult?" The low-pitched voice, entangled, is really stingy. Yan Ji smiled up at him, smiled, and stomped on his chin. The man Su did not expect that Yanj would be so active. He bowed his head just to deepen the kiss. Yanj suddenly pushed him away, and ran forward as soon as he was smoky, and ran back to the box door in one breath. Then he stopped and turned to look at the man. She waved goodbye to the man, and then she didn't even enter the box. Man left the game before he was opened. Nima egg. At this party, although there was no teacher dare to mess around on the bright side because of the teacher's town, they were singing freely, and even took a microphone to swear loudly to confess those who had too late to confess. There are so many boys and girls in the class, but the ones who confess to the song are the most. Yan Ji was sitting next to the teacher all the time. No matter who confessed, she was timid with her head down, and she seemed quite obsessed with the obedient students. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 580. The teacher really likes the student of Yanj, so she has been taking care of her all the way. When the party was over, it was Su and Su mothers who answered the song. Naturally, the two elders thanked the teacher again and again. On the second day, he even prepared a heavy gift and went to the teacher's home with Yanj to thank him. My daughter's test was so good this time. Her daughter's hard work is very important, but Su and Su's mother felt that the class teacher also worked hard for their daughter. Had it not been for the head teacher to deal with it, their daughter might not even have been in the original class when she returned. So along the way, Father Su and Mother Su also clamored for Yan Ji to have time to visit the teacher in the future. People cannot forget. Yan Song nodded and answered. Although it was a holiday, but Yanj didn't make fun of it. She started preparing for high school classes. Father Su and Mother Su have encouraged her to go out and play countless times, but seeing that she has no interest in going out, and she is not playing games at home, but reading books and doing questions. Although she is glad that her daughter is motivated, she is worried. Don't learn your daughter as a nerd. As for Grandma Su was sent back to her hometown after she finished the exam. The old lady was really too respectful of the sons and daughters. When she came, she not only criticized the song, she even kept screaming for her mother to have a second child. Having a child, she privately punctured the condom used by Su's father and mother. Su's mother thought that this was done by Su's father. After the two had a family war, they found out that the culprit was another. When the two were arguing, Grandma Su was sitting in the living room watching the anti-Japanese war drama with enthusiastic cuddly seeds. When the two of them quarreled, she whispered, "As for you, you will have a baby when you are pregnant. I'll help you bring it." Father Su didn't know where this was from his own mother. Although she didn't say it, she sent her back home the next day. As soon as Grandma Su left, it seemed that more than half of the people had disappeared from the house. The room was quiet, and no one turned on the TV. Even the efficiency of language song learning has improved. In high school for 3 years, Yanj jumped twice and successfully entered a very famous university with a grade that made Su's father and mother's chin fall. My daughter's experience of early love seems to be okay. She learns well without saying, and she is more sensible than before. Although Su's mother was pleased, when she thought of her daughter's young age, she would be far away from going to college, and she was worried in her heart. Yan Ji is very calm about Su's father and his mother's misery. After soothing, she started her college career. The weak chicken reminded her, "You won't forget the host boyfriend who loved early?" Yanj asked, "What about remembering?" The host's body was badly damaged. She didn't want to sacrifice early. She had been conditioning the host's body. She had been sober for so long. She suspected that the monk was not as hard as her. The chick thought she was not in a hurry, but she was very impatient. "Chicken, aren't you saying that the tasks that can be accomplished by beauty can never depend on ability?" Jiwei also echoed, "Sister, I can help you. How can a woman's smile seduce a man? No one knows better than me." Song, get out. Grow well, learn well, and have a good temper. In the first year of college, Yanj was successfully promoted to the school. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 581. I don't know how many boys present diligently delivering love letters in front of Yan Ji, but the flower of Cowling is scornful. Chicken and Jiwei are commenting on the crookedness of these boys every day, but no matter how much they add firewood, the words have no meaning to enrich the nightlife. The chicken was curious. You don't want to hang yourself on the tree like Fei Jiao, like the host. However, the chicken cub quickly slammed. A former WeChat friend found Yanj and asked her if she was interested in tutoring. It is a rich child who wants to make up lessons. It is 1,000 an hour and he wants to learn by name. This classmate now has a tutoring class, and Yan Ji didn't expect he would find himself. When asked who was going to teach, she was silent for a moment and said, "Okay. This rich child is not someone else, it is Fei Jiao." After 3 years of touring around, Yanj is already a sophomore, but Fei Jiao is still a senior. He transferred back from abroad in the 3rd year of high school, and his schoolwork could not keep up. Although his family did not care about his academic performance, he was not a solution. He had to save it. Before the song, there were already several tutors already. According to the address left by the former classmates, Yanj went around and found the villa where Fei Jiao lived. Yanj University is now in the capital city, and in the capital city, it has a villa with a large area, and the location of this villa is also very good. This family is really rich and powerful. It was really cold in spring, and in the evening it was drizzling, and Yan Ji was wearing a white skirt with ankles, but she had a red umbrella with red plums in the snow. Because the employer said that the fare can be reimbursed, she came here from the taxi. As soon as she got out of the car door, she was stepped back slightly by the wind and drizzle. Although the sky was overcast, the surroundings seemed to be invisible in the fog because of the drizzle. But Yan Ji's white dress with a red umbrella looked very distinct from afar. She said a few words to the doorman. The doorman probably also knew that there was a tutor to come to the door today. After reading Yanj's ID card, he put people in. A car just came out of the villa slowly at this moment. Yan Ji busy lifted a corner of her skirt, and avoided it in a small step. Her umbrella was raised slightly, outsiders could only see her round white chin, but couldn't see her entire face. The car was walking very slowly, and after passing the song, the people in the car just saw the word song with the umbrella closed in the rear view mirror. A woman's face is sharper than a red umbrella, and more dazzling than her thin waist. Unintentionally squinting, the man in the car froze, the car backed back to Yan Ji, the window slowly lowered. Yanj was supposed to enter the door, and when she saw the car retreated to her side, she was shocked and took a step back. The man sat in the car and looked at the word slightly. Sue couldn't stand the scorching gaze of the man, and Yan Ji slightly raised his head and glanced at him, seeing that his car didn't mean to leave, so he took 2 steps back and walked around the car and entered the gate. As soon as I entered the door, the red umbrella in my hand opened again, and a housekeeper came to lead the way. By the way, I introduced the situation of my young master. My young master just came back from abroad and is not familiar with the homework. Yan Ji handed him the invoice for the taxi. I will try my best to help. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 582. The voice was soft and gentle, but not humble, but it was full of affection. The housekeeper took the invoice and paused, and said, "The young master is not very good-tempered, and I hope Mr. Su can be considerate." Yan Ji nodded. The cobbled path had been bypassed in the talking room, and it had passed through a meadow before reaching a 3-story building. After entering the small building, a maid named Zhang Ma handed a towel to Yanj for her to wipe. Yan Ji took it politely, but did not wipe it, but asked, "The student I want to tutor, where is he?" Mother Zhang pointed upstairs. "I'll take you up." Yan Ji nodded. Fei Jiao's room is on the innermost floor of the 2nd floor. The carpet on the 2nd floor is soft. Yanj changed slippers, and there was no sound of stepping on it. Zhang Ma knocked on the door and heard a low in, which slowly pushed the door open. "Master, Teacher Su is here." The people inside said sitting at the desk, leaving only a back view for Yanj. Zhang Ma has become accustomed to such rude things as Fei Jiao. She smiled at the song and signaled that the door was closed slowly after the song entered. Yanj stood by the door and introduced himself to the person sitting at the desk. "Hello, I'm your tutor in the future, my surname is Su, and you can call me Teacher Su at noon." The man was still sitting upright at the table, holding a book in one hand, but the book never turned pages. Yan Ji approached, and she took off the skull bag on her back. Only one chair in the room was occupied by Fei Jiao. She didn't care. She put the skull bag on the table and took out the lesson plan she had done overnight. But his hand was held down by Fei Jiao. "It's me, Mian." His voice was a little dumb, and when he said that, he looked up at her. She stood at the window and watched her holding a red umbrella from the gate towards the small building. The rain and mist were hazy and the rain drizzled. Her white ankle skirt angle slightly blew and fluttered. Half fall, just like his heart then. She was afraid of the wetness of the skirt due to rain, so she slightly raised the corners of her skirt, and her delicate calf was exposed. Even though she could not see her face, his gaze was still attached to her graceful figure, and her eyes could not be moved away. The old friend was still in the original city. When he first went abroad, he learned about her recent situation from his friends. She returned to school and returned to the original class. Her grades plummeted, and many people in the school gave her nicknames and shoes. Even in private, she was blocked by many girls to find fault. He asked his friends to take care of her, and he asked her to give her a card that can be used to swipe money. The password is his and her birthday. However, whether it was a friend's show or the card she handed to her, she returned it intact. She didn't want to have any more relationship with him. His memory of her most ended when she took the first test when she was in the middle school entrance exam. She became the teacher's pride. He also saw her graduation photos. So many students, he saw her at a glance. She is more beautiful than ever, it is a beautiful flower in bloom. For 3 years, he finally came back, and the first time was to find a way to approach her. He asked her old friend to pull the line and let her be his tutor. He thought she would probably not agree. However, she agreed. She knew that the student was him, and she agreed. Is this what she still has in his heart? After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 583. She was sure, as much as he was thinking of each other. Fei Jiao has been telling himself this way, and he is looking forward to his first meeting with Yanj. But at the end, he didn't even dare go out to meet her. Even when she saw her uncle's figure, her heart became even more panicky. Her self-introduction, although her voice was mild, was also serious. which made his shivering heart slowly cool down again. But at this moment, she looked up at her eyebrows. The coldness in his heart all turned into a lingering affection. He didn't wait for her to respond, and continued to call, "Winter, it's me." He got up, took her thin body into his arms, lowered his head and kissed her lips. Sue was walking in the rain, her lips were cool, and her pale face didn't have temperature. He pressed her face to her face, kissing her nose and eyebrows, and the murmured voice became crazy, "Wan Mian, I miss you so much, I miss you so much, Mian Mian, Mian Mian." The day of goodbye was still in sight. He almost chewed those pictures day and night. Now he can finally touch them. He almost can't wait to tear her clothes and bit her white neck. However, when I kissed it myself, I found it wrong. He looked up and stared at her tearful face. Her body was shaking, and her face was full of tears. For a moment, tears were already rolling down from her face to the hand he was holding on her face. Her body was so cold, but her tears were hot and fell on the back of his hands like a flash of light, and his heart trembled with pain. "Mian Mian, Mian Mian," he went to pull her hand, only to realize that her fingers were tightly squeezed into a fist, and the nails had bleed out the blood from the palm of the hand. It took him a lot of effort to push her fingers apart. "Mian Mian, Mian Mian." This was also the case when the heart was the most painful. He really wished to take care of her inside and out. He hugged her and tried to appease her, "Mian Mian, it's me, I'm Jiao." Before he could finish speaking, she shoved him away and took a few steps back to fall to the ground. Her lips were pursed tightly, tearful eyes were staring at him, and her eyes were full of tears, her eyes full of panic and panic. He was still near, and she suddenly yelled sharply, "Don't come over." She stared at him as if looking at a demon. Her voice was sharp, but the girl's voice was soft and beautiful. Even if she raised her height, she couldn't get anywhere. Instead, the rush and panic in her voice made people feel pity. He stood in place, didn't move, his heart was like a person holding his breath, his painful breathing was a bit difficult. He called her lowly, "Mian Mian, don't be afraid, I won't do that to you. Something is up, don't be afraid." He tried to reach out to help her again, and she suddenly got up and ran towards the door in a panic. However, after 2 steps, he was tripped by a ball thrown on the ground, and his head was pinched on the wall. Fei Jiao shouted "Mian Mian" in shock, and ran quickly. It was less than 3 minutes after the tutor came into the room, and people hit the wall, their foreheads were broken a lot, and half of the blood was on their faces. Where did the housekeeper dare to hide such things and send people before the hospital? Did not forget to find a chance to secretly call the Fei family to inform. In the VIP room of the hospital, the girl was lying on the bed covered with a pink quilt, and the little pale face was even paler because of the powder in the room. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 584. Yanj took medicine and just fell asleep. Even when I was sleeping, I was frowning and depressed. Fei Jiao sat beside the bed, stupid, staring at her face. Her face was small, gauze wrapped around her forehead, and her chin seemed to be smaller and her face smaller. The big and small things in the hospital are run by housekeepers. Fei Jiao listened to Zhang's mother muttering to himself and said to himself, how can a little girl such as Teacher Su be so good, but do Auntie leave scars? It looks so beautiful. How sad. He didn't seem to hear it, and sat there motionless. Later, Mom Zhang said so much that he got impatient and went out. He called an old classmate he knew and asked him about Su Mian Mian. The thing about Su Mian Mian? Ha ha ha, Jiao, you guy, once you come back, let me find someone to investigate whether there is a mail ticket for Su Mian Mian in the past 3 years, And now I can't wait to call you. Should you not do you want to eat grass? After waiting for Fei Jiao to speak, the person on the phone said, Fei Jiao, don't forget that you said that Su Mian was a good-looking fish, but it was a dead fish on the bed. Oh, you said she is not as good as death. It is so boring. I remember that you would really want to get rid of her. What is going on with you now? Could it be that what you and everyone say are fake? Fei Jiao has heard this much better. He is not afraid of being beaten at all. It doesn't matter that he said, yeah, what I said was false, lest you guys pry the corner, I won't call it now. Take back the grass, I am pursuing her again, you hurry, what happened to her? Fei Jiao, don't you say you are serious? I urge you to think about it and stop tossing people. It was the first time that Fei Jiao heard it from a friend's mouth. He wanted to say that he hadn't tossed her, but he stunned the person lying on the bed, and then swallowed it when he reached the mouth. He said, what happened? If it weren't for anything, my friend wouldn't have said that. The person on the other side of the phone sighed, in the past 3 years, Su Mian hasn't even been involved with other boys, let alone love. She would only go to 2 places if she left home in the past 3 years. One schools, another place, are hospitals. Before Fei Jiao was struck by the ecstasy of her never falling in love after him, he was typed back by the hospital's words, hospital? Is she sick? What is it? Going to the hospital without interruption for 3 years must be a difficult disease. She won't get any bad disease, right? She went to a private clinic. In a very private clinic, I paid all my medical records for a little money. Jiao, you will be really surprised after reading it. What did she get? Mentally ill, she has severe depression. Such a woman who looks completely normal, you talk about her, how her severe depression behaves normally in front of outsiders. Fei Jiao, don't chase her, no, I'll try, I'm actually curious about this woman. You dare to try and we'll be friends. In fact, most of the so-called medical records are those recordings of Yan Ji's psychological counseling twice a week when he talked with the psychologist. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 585. Seeing that Song of Song was still asleep, Fei Jiao turned around and went to his friend to get the recordings. He couldn't wait to know what happened to Song of Song. It didn't take long for Fei Jiao to leave, and the door was opened. A man in a suit came in. He first scanned the ward around the ward. Then he walked to the bed of Yan Ji, bowed his head slightly, and looked at the woman in bed this face. After a long time, she stretched her white fingers and pinched Yan Ji's chin slightly, turning her face to the side. That night she bent over and rubbed his shoes to expose the white neck with a red mole the size of a red bean. Sushi was so conspicuous that the red beans inlaid in that white greasy, which led him to think about it now, and was only very impressed by that scene. Sure enough, it was no wonder that she felt very familiar when she saw it before. It was determined that this woman was his somehow little niece who had come over, and his interest was stronger. The finger holding her chin pressed against her lips. The pale lips gradually became red and delicate under his pressure. His fingertips accidentally fell into her lips, and a little wet between her lips. After a pause, he retracted his fingers and pursed his fingers with his lips. The taste must be good. Yan's sleeplessness was unsteady, and the screamed in her ears. When she was awake, the did not sound like she was pulled out of her tongue. She stared at this all-pink room for a moment, then realized it later, in the hospital. Awake, a low voice sounded in the room. Yan Ji looked at his voice, and saw a man sitting on a seat on the balcony. The sun was shining outside the window, and the man was carrying light, making his image fall into the shadow. See what he looks like. How do you feel? The man got up and slowly walked towards Yan Ji's bed. Step by step, as he got rid of those bright sunshine, his face emerged from the shadows, gradually becoming clearer and brighter. His facial features are sharp, and because of thin lips, the entire face gives a gloomy, disturbing, subconscious, vigilant and scared. Each time he stepped forward, Yan Ji's eyes became more frightened. She clutched the quilt tightly and stuttered, I don't know you. The man walked to the bed of Yanj, leaning over and close to Yanj's face, but did not continue to approach. He supported his hands on both sides of her body, just to circle her. My name is Fei Yuans, and I am the guardian of Fei Jiu. I am very sorry for what you have done to you. Yan Ji shook his head in a hurry, and said in a weak voice, I accidentally tripped over the ball and fell on the wall, and has nothing to do with Fei. But the man obviously didn't believe her words. He touched her head and praised, what a good girl with a good heart. When the words are off, hold up the words and go out. Words of song. You, where do you take me? Yan Ji hurriedly pushed him, you, let me down, I will go by myself, I will go by myself. The man's chest was like an iron block, and the song didn't bother him after a few hits. When he went out, he said, you are injured and you have difficulty walking. I should hold you. I put my head down and it has nothing to do with my legs. You, don't do this, you put me down.